David Shaw, year 9 as the Stanford head football coach, and he joins us now. I wonder, David, could you handle hosting Saturday Night Live? The writers are great. Can you deliver some funny lines?
As my players would say, that's not really my bag. I know where my lane is, and I stay in it.
Well, it's been a darn good lane you found as one of the best head coaches. You followed Jim Harbaugh, who was with us yesterday from an RV park with his family, and now you're with us here today. You've done such a good job at Stanford. So the NCAA lifts this ban on-campus activities for players June 1 through June 30, the first allowed step back to try to get your players towards a football season. There are a lot of questions, and I'll ask you those in a minute, but just directly to you, what maybe folks don't realize, it's got to be unique with Stanford. Your kids, your students are still in class. They don't wrap up until mid-June. So how does that impact you and your program directly?
Well, the NCAA, I think, is really what they're doing is saying, hey, it's up to each campus to say when they're ready to come back. We're 100% online right now at Stanford. Guys are knee-deep in their education. What each campus has to decide is who's coming back to campus, where they're going to stay. There's this huge thing that we're all kind of waiting for, which I think we're on the verge of, which is very rapid testing. I think that's part of bringing people back is being able to make sure that everybody's is healthy. And if they're not, you have to have a way to quarantine them to get them healthy and not infect your entire team. So I think that's a process that we're all talking about. Some places are ahead of others. Some conferences are ahead of other conferences as far as being able to either say, everybody come back when you're ready, or let's have a conference rule so that we can all be on the same page. So those are the next steps for everybody over the next couple of weeks.
What would you like to see the Pac-12 do?
Well, I think the Pac-12 has been pretty consistent. We would like uniformity, even whether it's all conferences or our conference, all kind of be ready to come back at the same time. If that doesn't happen, we all understand if somebody comes back a week ahead of somebody else, it won't be the biggest thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. So it's really incumbent upon each conference. And we had a great conference call yesterday in our working group about, basically having some standards. There has to be some minimums met in order to come back. It has to satisfy your state and local governments, has to satisfy your school and also the conference to make sure that you're not rushing back and you're not ready to handle the eventualities of what's going to happen, because someone is going to be positive, someone's going to test positive, and what are you going to do about that to protect the rest of your team, your staff, and your coaches?
And Stanford and University of Washington, because there were initial outbreaks in Seattle and Santa Clara County there near Palo Alto, you were among the first schools, not just football, but just schools to stop and say, hey, the rest of the semester or quarter in Stanford's case is going to finish online. So you've had really a great, strong head start in dealing with this with your team and with your campus. How about dealing with your players? How have they adapted to not just the virtual education part of it, but any sort of virtual football that you've tried to pull off with the guys?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of respect for Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, a lot of respect for our administration at Stanford, our president and provost, really being on the forefront of saying, hey, let's make sure this doesn't affect everybody. Let's act first. Let's act quickly. Let's be efficient. So we transitioned very quickly to online. And initially on the football side, I told our coaches, leave the guys alone. This is a traumatic thing that's happening to everyone in America. So being pushed back home, starting classes online, getting your bearings. We had a lot of student athletes whose parents went through very difficult things, whether furloughed or temporary laid off, and there's a lot of things going on. So we allowed them to be people for a little bit, get your lives organized for a couple of weeks, and then we started coming back. We didn't have a lot of big meetings. What we had was really small meetings, individual meetings with the coaches and their position players, just so they could have a chance to have a dialogue and not just, hey, here's some more plays, where football wasn't imminent at that time. There's no reason for us to really push these guys that hard. We wanted them to get settled, wanted them to feel supported. If guys needed something, we were able to help them out. So that was our initial thought. And then as we got moving, then of course, those of us coaches over 30 years old figured out how to use this Zoom thing and really figured out how to change our backgrounds and show video. But we still kept those meetings short, just so they could be conversational, they could be intimate. and guys can feel connected, because that's one thing. You come to a university to feel connected to the university. You come to a team, a sports team, to feel like part of the team, and that was kind of taken away from these guys. So we try to make sure that that stayed a constant is our unity, our community, so the guys feel supported as we move on to the next stage.
It's weird. It happens so fast. I mean, I happened to be out on campus, and on Sunday, I came and watched your guys go through a little spring football workout before a basketball game, and then a week later, the students were heading back home, and school went online. So it just happened like this, and to sense the trauma for the kids, I think, is something that really connects with you as a coach and with your players. You know, Stanford's a different place. So is Notre Dame. So is Vandy. The people who are playing D1 sports, Duke at a very high level, also trying to do the academic part. You know, David, when people use the term student athlete, a lot of folks in the media, the debate show folks, they just go nuts and they think it's just the stupidest phrase out there. From your perspective, can you still have student athletes in 2020 and be able to do this given how high profile and how high profit sports has become?
That's a great question, and I think we could do probably a 2-hour segment just on that question. Um, and no disrespect to anybody else that you mentioned, we don't use the term student athlete very often. We typically say scholar athletes. And you just look at the top of our roster over the last couple of years. Bryce Love graduated two quarters early as an All-American in football and a biology major because he wants to be a doctor. Christian McCaffrey was a two-time academic All-American and the academic All-America of the year. So we believe we can do it at a high level. I think everyone can do it at a high level. I think there's a line between how much money is made and what we're actually trying to do, because I'm a Stanford alum. I'm a Stanford guy, and I think very methodically and systematically. And I like to come back and ask, what are we doing? Right? I say forget about the money, and everybody gets all upset. But what are we actually doing? We are actually providing an opportunity for young people to get an education that some of them maybe wouldn't have gotten the education without the sports. So for us, it's about both. It's not just about the sports. It's not just about how much money is made by the universities, by the coaches, by the NCAA. I think the name, image, and likeness thing is going in a good direction, and I have absolutely no problem with that. I think that's great. I think it's been coming,
Okay.
and I think many of us have been preparing for it. But at the same time, that's really only going to benefit a certain portion of the student athletes. It's not going to benefit a lot of them in any great measure. What's really going to benefit these
Right.
people is getting their education. So yes, they should be student athletes. They should be scholar athletes. They should go to class. They should get a degree. Some of them are going to leave early if they got that opportunity, that earning potential. God bless them. Go get it. Go do it. Absolutely. But for the high percentage of them, they're going to make money off that education. They're going to make money off of their opportunities that come to them through their college experience.
95% of the conversation about the future of college sports is about 1% of the athletes, the ones who are at the elite level who can go pro early and do those things. And the rest we don't talk about. I'm glad you're able to give that some voice a little bit. But people have knocked on your door and they ask all the time, well, is David Shaw going to go to the NFL? Why do you still feel empowered, excited, energized by what happens in the college space, given all the different tentacles of college football that you just talked about?
I answer that question really with two things. Number one, my career was reverse of many coaches. 2 years out of college, I was coaching in the NFL. So I had 9 years of NFL experience, and so I know what that's about. It doesn't hold any. Oh my gosh, I wonder what that feels like. I know what that feels like. I've been there. I've coached Hall of Fame players and great players, and coached in everything but the Super Bowl. So I know what that feels like. That's number one. Number two for me is Stanford is a destination for me. Stanford's not a place you just kind of go through, do a good job, and jump out of here. That's not the way I see this job. You've been on campus multiple times. We've talked about your son's experience and people he's encountered with already. I love being at Stanford because I get the brightest guys. I get the most competitive guys on and off the field. I still tell people I write more recommendations than any football coach in America for graduate school, for job opportunities. I've helped guys get to the point where they're starting their own companies. That doesn't happen on any other campus other than ours. So I love the energy. I love the passion. Not to mention we're coming off a pretty doggone good decade and ready to start the next decade on a high note also.
And last season wasn't what you guys had built. What do you find as the energizing parts of the forecast for the 2020 season if it happens as planned?
You know, it's one of those silver lining opportunities where when you go back and you watch our film and gosh, we were so close in so many games, and some games we just didn't play as well, but you take out the bright spots, and a high percentage of those bright spots are guys that are coming back. Our quarterback, Davis Mills, threw for 500 yards against Washington State last year, and really you saw him start to really grow towards the end of the year. We think he's going to be an outstanding quarterback, one of the top in college football. I think we've got two premier players that decided to come back. They didn't have to come back, but decided to come back. And Walker Little, our left tackle, has got a chance to be a superstar. High round draft pick Paulson Adebo at corner also. So we've got those high-level players that decided to come back. We've got a lot of young guys that came in and played and did some really good things. And now with a year of experience, a year under their belts, coming back, being bigger, faster, stronger. I love where we are on our offensive line and our defensive line, the two premier places in college football. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year.
And on that style standpoint, one thing you do, tight ends, offensive linemen, it's kind of line up and play a physical brand of football, which is what's helped Stanford go in this direction here. Can that still have a championship place in the 5 wide, spread them out, let's throw the ball 75 times world that sometimes we dabble our foot in college football?
You know, I think things go in cycles. You've been around this game for a long time, and you see a lot of different things, a lot of trends happening. We're a prototypical West Coast offense, which for me means balance. We were imbalanced this past year. We had so many injuries on the offensive line. Couldn't run the ball that we were capable to. We're looking to get back to that balance, to be a physical running team up front with play action pass, as well as being able to adopt some things from other people. I tell people all the time, you watch Chip Kelly and you watch us, we look so different. But I think we've stolen more things from Chip Kelly than anybody else over the last decade. So you'll see some RPOs in our game. You'll see some no huddle. You'll see a lot of different things. So for us, it's about offensive versatility as well as balance. So I do believe you can be a physical running team. Gosh, for about 5 years, we were leading the nation in winning games by big margins. And a lot of it was throwing to score and running to win.
Throw to score, run to win. I like that. It's different. It's what you don't hear as much anymore, but I love it. Hey, great to catch up with you. I'm glad you and the family are best to all your folks, and we'll catch up with you out on the farm. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we see you in South Bend this fall. That'd be great.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you there.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.